So here we go, everybody. Welcome to Meet the Oppo, the series where I get the lowdown on Town's next opponent, which is Bolton Wanderers at the Uni Bowl in League One. It's third versus fifth, and I'm joined by Marc Iles, the chief football writer at the Bolton News. Always a pleasure, my friend. How's things?
Wow! Some real energy in that that intro. You've got me excited about the game now, mate.
Yeah. Wow. We always build up these games, don't we? When big boys of League One come together. But sometimes it ends to be, a goalless draw or stuff like that.
It's Super Saturday. It's Super Saturday. There's never been a more Super Saturday than the one you're just about to witness. I can't wait.
Let's do it, my friend. Now, let's recap Bolton. We haven't played since the opening day. Remember, Mark, it was back in July. We kicked off the season in July. That was a 1-1 draw. Bolton, they've been winning machines, but they've had up and down results. How do you recap it for Town fans?
Well, back in July, was it July, August, whenever it was, the first game of the season, I was in Mexico. I've got to be honest, I preferred those days. That was so much better. But I actually watched that from beside a pool in Mexico. But after that, I came back, and we've had. It's been a really consistent season compared to last season for Bolton, where they'd come up from League Two. They were newly promoted. Certainly before Christmas, they were struggling and then had a good finish to the season. So they finished 9th. Compared to that, it's been so consistent, especially the home form. It's been magnificent. Defensively, they've conceded very little. There've been odd patches where they've struggled to score goals, but now Dion has got himself on a decent run of form, and that's starting to change as well. So really, they're looking like a team that's got a chance of the playoffs, and I don't think you can ask too much more, really, considering the budgets they've got compared to the rest of the division, I suppose.
Yeah, because last year they were the machine, weren't they, Bolton, at the end of the campaign after getting promoted, and what is the current mood with Town fans, Bolton fans? Because I'm sure they're happy, but then there's been a mixed bag of results in the last few weeks, months.
Yeah, I mean you have little patches, but I think they're learning to deal with it a bit better. I think you soon learn that as long as you can keep bunching those wins together and keeping yourself in the mix, you start to learn to deal with the odd disappointment. I mean, they drew at Morecambe last weekend, and it was 0-0. It's a horrible place to go, Morecambe. It's a terrible place to try and play football, particularly. And they came out and they're like, that's automatic promotion gone then, blah blah. And I just thought, well, do you know what? It probably is. It probably was before that game, if truth be told. But they've gone there and they haven't conceded anything. And I think that you can take something from the fact that you're not going to these horrible places and getting turned over as Bolton were last season. And they have done a couple of times this season. Earlier, I think it was Cheltenham and Forest Green in October. They had a week in Gloucestershire where they were looking vulnerable. And after that, whatever has happened, they've improved things in January. But after that, they've looked so much more solid. And that just gives me a bit of hope. If they can stay in that mix, if they can stay in that fourth of playoffs, then they're going to be very, very difficult to beat in that playoff mix. And then, anything can happen.
Yeah, and of course, a nice little trip to Wembley in the Pizza Trophy against Plymouth. Town, since they've been in League One, they've been trying to get there because we have never been to Wembley before, and that's an easy route to play at Wembley. But we've got enough of that. We got there. But I'm sure Bolton fans and yourself are looking forward to a trip to Wembley.
It's the 14th one for Bolton. I've done a few. The last time was actually they got beat 5-0 by Stoke in the semi-final. That wasn't good. I promise you, as a journalist, having a 32-page supplement to write after that game is no fun whatsoever. But there's a few ghosts to be exercised potentially in that stadium. Plymouth Argyle, it's going to be a big crowd. I'm sure the EFL are happy that Bolton and Plymouth have got there, and there's going to be a decent crowd rather than Accrington and Cheltenham, which would have been a bit weird. But yeah, we're looking forward to it. It's something. I mean, look, the journey that Bolton have been on, and you guys have obviously dipped down to League One level, but things have stayed nice and secure financially. Bolton very nearly went out of business. And I think the whole idea of going to Wembley, it'll be a day that I think people can just enjoy that things are getting better. And, regardless of what happens this season, regardless of playoffs and such like, I think it's still getting better. And I just hope they can enjoy the day.
Definitely. Let's talk about the manager then. In Evatt, He's been the man in charge for the last few years. He's done very well indeed. What's he saying at the moment going into this big game, and what's he been saying recently?
Well, I asked him after the Morecambe game about Ipswich, and Bolton have also got a game at Sheffield Wednesday on the Friday as well after Ipswich. So they're two games that potentially could make or break the season. But we've been saying that, week after week, it's always the next game's the biggest game and all that kind of thing. So again, this seems like another pivotal stretch for Bolton. But he is quite relaxed about Ipswich and Sheffield Wednesday because performance-wise, Bolton haven't done too bad against the big teams. Now they've lost a couple of games they shouldn't have done. Sheffield Wednesday and Plymouth being two of the big ones. Wickham was another one against the teams up and around them. But generally speaking, they've played pretty well, and I think certainly against Ipswich on the opening day, they certainly deserved the point in my opinion for the first half performance at least. So yeah, he's quite relaxed about it, especially on home turf. Bolton have been very, very difficult to score against, let alone beat on home turf. I mean, James Trafford's went 16 hours without conceding a goal up until last time out. I think it's Port Vale that put one past him. So yeah, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy at all for Ipswich as well as they're playing, and as much as you look at the form and think, yeah, you've got half a chance of maybe catching top two. I think it's going to be a really good game. Yeah,
because last time we played Bolton at the Uni Bowl was a 2-0 defeat. One of McKenna's early defeats. I think one of his maybe first defeats. Can't remember. Top stats, not on top of my head at the moment. But yeah, last defeat for Bolton at home was back in October. Only 2 defeats all year. Why is that, do you reckon then, Mark? And is there any difference that they do from away to home?
Yeah, I think the size of the pitch and Bolton fans will be rolling their eyes if they hear this, because I tend to bang on about it quite a lot, and certainly Evatt does. I think the way they play, it's a very expansive way. They need space to operate. And on pitches like Morecambe, for example, or Fleetwood, or the smaller ones, it's not as easy to play the way they want to, but they've kind of settled into a rhythm at Bolton at home. They're backed by a big crowd. It's been a really positive crowd this season as well, and that's helped them. The pitch has been bang average, truth be told. That hasn't helped, but they've still found a way. They've still managed to play some of the best football at home. And I think that belief has just grown, and it kind of becomes a bit of a legend, and people like yourselves are looking at Bolton's home form before you turn up, and it suddenly maybe plays on the back of people's minds when they turn up and say, well, this isn't going to be easy. So yeah, I think long may that legend continue, because I think if they can stay unbeaten at home, or if they can win more than they draw at home, I think they'll stay in that top 6.
Definitely. And is the weather all okay in Bolton?
It's snowing. It's snowing.
Okay.
I've just spotted it started snowing. It's not going to make a great deal of difference unless there's an absolute deluge up at the stadium. But drive safe if you're coming up, because it's pretty tricky in these northern roads at the moment.
Yeah. Of course, long trip for town fans, but yeah, it should be good. Let's talk then about the players then, Mark. We've talked about the form, the manager and all that, the stadium, the home form. Let's bring up the last 11 against Morecambe, as you mentioned, a goalless draw. Dion Charles scoring the goal, 16 this season. Mm-hmm. Who should we look out for? Of course, Dion Charles is the main man up top.
Well, Dion's in a position at the moment. I think he's got 18 in all competitions. No Bolton player has scored 20 goals in a season since Michael Ricketts in 2001. So we've waited, 22 years for a player to be touching. Owen Coyle did it. Owen Doyle. Coyle, bloody hell. Owen Doyle did it. He got 19 last season. Season before last, rather, in the League 2 season. So yeah, he's got a very good chance, Dion, of cracking that and becoming a bit of a club legend on the back of that. But he scores goals in little fits and starts. He's very much a confidence player, but he has got that sort of devilment about him. He's got that kind of that nasty grittiness about him. He's a pest, basically. And I like watching him play, to be honest. He really does tend to rub opposition defenders up the wrong way, and I would hate to mark him. That's for certain. I don't think I'd stay on the pitch very long at all. But you've got Shola Shoretiri there, who's on loan from Manchester United. Whether or not he plays or not is a different matter. I think there's some question about whether or not he can play as a striker or whether he's better playing as a 10. But in terms of a touch and in terms of his movement, he's a different level. He looks a fantastic prospect. Only very, very young. I think he's 18, 19, but he's a really, really good player. He's been a good addition. It's just figured out where to play him. And then big Rico Santos as well at the back as well, who's suddenly discovered how to score goals. Having gone 117 games, I think it was, without a goal, he suddenly got 3 in 2 at one stage. He's starting to get a bit of belief coming up for set pieces. He's 6'5", 6'6". He's a massive unit. And if he's running at you in the penalty box, you better watch out. So yeah, I think there's lots of interesting stories there. They've built a reasonable squad. They're getting players back now from injury as well. So there might be a couple of new names to throw into there with a bit of luck. So it's looking quite good.
Yeah, definitely. I want to talk about Ian Toole quickly. I think that's right. Probably not. An Irishman. His debut campaign. Recently called up for Northern Ireland. I think it was Evatt who said that could be the future of Northern Ireland football. Young player, he'd done pretty well this season. Yeah,
well, Tolle came into the side just before Christmas, and he signed from Derry City, so we didn't know a great deal about him. He'd played for Northern Ireland's youth team, so he had a bit of pedigree. But we saw him in the cup competitions, maybe a bit rough around the edges. But we had an injury to Gethin Jones, and then Ricardo Santos got a bad illness, and suddenly the defence was decimated before Christmas. And he came in and totally ran the show. Looked like a Rolls Royce, a real, he looked quality, and he hasn't looked back really. And Michael O'Neill has been watching him for Northern Ireland 3 or 4 times now. And yeah, he just looks comfortable at this level of football. To be fair, he didn't have a great game against Morecambe last time out. I think Bolton fans will want me to mention that. But I think generally speaking, he's been fantastic. He deserves his call up. And he's a good bit of recruitment. And I tell you what, I can count on the fingers of one hand how many times I've said that in the last 10 years at Bolton.
Definitely. Well then, Marc, let's talk about how you're feeling going into this game. Always a big game when Town and Bolton face, 2 really big teams in this division. What do you reckon?
I mean, I'm always confident when Bolton are playing at home. I'm confident they don't lose the game. You look at Ipswich's form, the way they're playing. I don't know whether Davis is going to come through. Is he going to play or is he not going to play? But that's going to be a big thing for Ipswich. I think he looks like the main supply line. If he doesn't make it, then happy days. I would be more confident of a Bolton win. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a good football match. I think for the last few weeks, Bolton seems to have been playing against the battling teams. It's been high energy. It's been full press. It's been horrible to watch, to be honest. It's been a bit of a grind, especially the Morecambe game last weekend. So I'm actually looking forward to a team that's going to come and try and play football, as Kieran McKenna's teams tend to do. So, I hope for a goal glut, but hopefully edging in Bolton's favour.
Yeah, of course, you got to be on the side of the team you're covering. Well, then, Marc, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining me. Any other business? Any other notes you want to mention? Any little things that Town fans should know about?
Well, I'll tell you what. You can listen to the Buff podcast, which is out on Friday. It's all your good podcast stockists. I'm just about to record the latest episode, and I'm telling you, I know it right now. It's going to be brilliant. I'm telling you.
I always know when you've got a plan in place, it's going to be a cracker. And I thought this was a cracker.
Some of the funny things I'm going to say on that podcast, you'll never believe it. You won't believe your ears. It's well worth listening to.
Top man. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thanks very much for joining me, Marc. Thanks everyone for watching. If you're going, enjoy. If you're not, follow Game with us. And I said, check out Bolton News for any insight on all things Bolton going into this game. Bye-bye for now.
I'm not promising any insight.
We'll see.